Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are tackling something that is absolutely critical, but honestly gets overlooked way too often in modern cybersecurity. We're talking about third-party risk management and how to conduct proper vendor risk assessments. If you've ever wondered how secure your company actually is, the answer might not lie entirely within your own four walls. More often than not, it lives out there in your extended supply chain, in the partners, the vendors, and the cloud providers that you rely on every single day. Let's get right into it. All right, let's dive into this. Your security is only as strong as your weakest vendor. That right there, that is the entire core thesis of our explainer today. In the modern business landscape, you can build this massive, impenetrable fortress around your enterprise data. But if you hand the keys over to a vendor who just leaves them sitting out on the front porch, you're still entirely exposed. And look, attackers know this. They aren't always bothering to target you directly anymore. They're actively hunting for the path of least resistance through your extended enterprise. So, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to hit the third-party risk reality, the nth-party blind spot, and pathways to systemic breach. After that, we'll walk through a 7-step defense lifecycle and finish up with the resilience ROI. Let's jump in. Section 1, the third-party risk reality. Let's set our modern baseline. Look, locking down your own perimeter is obviously necessary, but these days, it's just no longer enough to keep you safe. We're all operating in these wildly interconnected digital ecosystems. Think about how we've traditionally evaluated trust. The old-school way relies on grabbing a point-in-time snapshot, like an annual SOC 2 or an ISO security certificate. And hey, those are great. But a certificate literally only proves that a vendor met security standards on the exact day they were audited last year. It tells you absolutely nothing about whether they're secure today. Real modern security demands continuous surveillance. We're talking real-time alerts and ongoing oversight. Because if a vendor suffers a data breach, goes through a massive leadership shakeup, or their security score tanks on a random Tuesday, you need to know immediately, not during next year's annual review. Moving right along to Section 2, the nth-party blind spot. This is where those sneaky, hidden dependencies come into play. Now, what's really interesting here is that you might be dealing with a severe risk you didn't even know you had. Nth-party risk. See, modern risk doesn't just neatly stop at your direct vendors, your third parties. That's exactly why doing a basic direct vendor risk assessment just isn't enough anymore. Attackers love to exploit vulnerabilities in your fourth party or nth party entities, basically the subcontractors of your subcontractors. Think about it. You might thoroughly vet the payroll software provider you buy from, sure, but what cloud hosting service do they use? What data processing tools are they relying on? These hidden dependencies are buried deep within modern supply chains, and without mapping out this entire ecosystem, you are flying completely blind. Section 3, Pathways to Systemic Breach. Let's look at how these weaknesses actually translate into real operational risk. So, the crucial point we need to understand is this. A compromised vendor is basically a direct pathway to a systemic breach right inside your own organization. We're talking about a classic Trojan horse entry. Imagine a small HVAC vendor's compromised password acting as a backdoor and opening up a massive retailer's entire corporate network. Crazy, right? But it happens. Then you've got operational dependency. What if you're relying heavily on a major cloud provider? They suddenly go offline, and surprise, they don't have a tested disaster recovery plan. Your operations grind to a halt. That leads straight to business paralysis, literally costing millions in lost productivity. And oh, don't forget compliance contamination. If you share customer data with a vendor and they mishandle it and violate strict privacy laws like GDPR in Europe or India's DPDP Act, guess what? You are on the hook. That's vicarious liability. You end up bearing the legal and financial responsibility for their negligence. One compromised vendor credential really can cause a full-scale network intrusion. Section 4, the 7-step defense lifecycle. Time to talk solutions and the structured framework used to combat these exact threats. Let's walk through the first half of this lifecycle, taking a vendor from initial discovery all the way to a rigorous evidence-based assessment. It kicks off with Step 1, vendor discovery and tiering. I mean, you can't protect what you don't know exists, right? You've got to categorize your vendors from Tier 1 down to Tier 3 based strictly on what kind of access they have to your sensitive data. Next up is Step 2, initial due diligence. This means conducting deep dive third-party risk assessments before you ever allow them to onboard. Step 3 gets a bit more into the weeds with security questionnaires. You want to deploy automated, industry-standard forms, like a SIG or a KIIQ, that fit each specific vendor's risk profile. But we don't just take their word for it. That brings us to step 4, attack surface scanning. This utilizes non-intrusive tools to scan the vendor from the outside, getting independent verification that their actual security posture matches the answers they gave you. Let's move to and see how this builds into the final stages of the life cycle. The next step is contractual hardening, and this is absolutely vital. You've got to insert right to audit clauses and specific cybersecurity service level agreements directly into your vendor contracts. Once they're legally bound and actually working with you, we hit the continuous monitoring phase. Remember those real-time triggers for breaches or score drops we talked about earlier? This is where you set those up. And finally, offboarding security. You know, a surprising number of companies totally forget this one. Security does not just magically end because the contract does. You have to make absolutely sure all your data is returned or completely destroyed, and that every single digital key or network access point is fully revoked. Now, beyond that standard life cycle, fully securing your extended supply chain usually requires some specialized focus areas. For example, SaaS security posture is all about auditing the security of your specific cloud tools, stuff like Salesforce or Microsoft 365. Then you've got API third-party audits, which verify the secure digital links talking between your internal systems and external partners. Oh, and M&A cyber due diligence is huge. If your company is buying another company, you absolutely need to assess their hidden cyber debt before the deal officially closes. And to fix that nth-party blind spot we dug into earlier, there's fourth-party mapping. That helps you identify your vendor's subcontractors so you can avoid concentration risk, basically making sure you aren't secretly relying on just one vulnerable underlying provider for everything. Section 5, the resilience ROI. Let's talk about the business continuity benefits of doing all this work. And this brilliantly illustrates the real, tangible return on investment for rigorous third-party risk management. First off, you actually shorten your procurement cycles. By using standardized, repeatable risk assessments, you can confidently onboard secure new vendors way faster. Second, you protect your reputation. You completely avoid the headline risk of waking up and seeing your brand tied to a massive vendor breach in the news. Third, you hit your regulatory compliance goals. Frameworks from regulators like the RBI, SEBI, and strict privacy mandates literally require this kind of third-party oversight. And finally, it acts as pure operational insurance. By vetting your vendors' disaster recovery and business continuity plans in advance, you ensure that even if they take a major hit, your business stays fully functional. Trust is earned for sure, but in the realm of cybersecurity, it absolutely must be verified. We've seen how attackers are actively hunting for the weakest links in the supply chain, and how a comprehensive lifecycle turns your extended enterprise from a glaring liability into a fortress. So as we wrap up today's explainer, I want to leave you with one final, pretty provocative thought to chew on. Are your vendors just checking boxes, or are you actually verifying trust? Thanks for hanging out with me today, and definitely take a hard look at your own supply chain today.